All right, everybody. Thank you and welcome to New Year, New Job. So, that is the plan for next year. In today's session, we're going to go over how you can interview effectively. So, my name is Laura Wallace, and I'm based in Athens, Ohio. And I've been working with people for decades at this point on how to interview effectively for jobs. That's where all of this comes from. So if you're here because you want a new job in 2026, or you've had a lot of interviews and you're kind of afraid you're going to be ghosted after interviews, that happens a lot, then my plan is to help you out today. So here's the thing. I see a lot of qualified candidates going up for these jobs. It's You already know this. You've probably applied to a few jobs, and just being able to get your foot in the door with an interview is an absolute success. And if if you are qualified, of course, you've done the homework, you have researched the company and all of that. But if you are having trouble connecting your experience in a way that the interviewer can understand, connecting it to what they need, then that's what we're going to work on today. We're going to work on focusing how to say what you need to say in a way that it lands instead of just what you say, because what you say is not enough. All right. So if you have been struggling to sell your knowledge and to sell your expertise, to communicate your worth, know this: the gap is not your knowledge. It's how you demonstrate your knowledge in a way that's going to resonate. So what's going to help you to build that bridge, to bridge that gap, I should say, is my 7-step job interviewing framework that I've developed over these past 20 something years. So today in this event, you're going to learn how to connect your experience to the interviewer's actual needs. You're going to learn what it is to speak their language naturally. And you're going to learn how to show, not just tell, why you're the right fit. So I'll give you an overview of the 7 steps today so that you can implement them right away. And if you do want more depth and more structure to these 7 steps, you can always take my job interview preparation course. It has the templates, resources, short videos, all of that, to where I walk you through each of the 7 steps in the preparation framework. And if you do want to take that course, it comes with a free live mock interview with me, where I go into serious detail finding the questions that they very well might ask you, so that you can practice and get feedback from me. So that way you can go into your interview being absolutely prepared and more confident than you may have been thus far. All right. Let's see. We're about to get started on this. Let's see. Oh, good. Maya's here. All right. So I do want to say that if you do end up wanting to go further with this and go into more depth by taking that course, because you guys took the time to be here today, and especially because you followed me from LinkedIn to Zoom because my StreamYard was not working, thank you very much. I will happily give you 50% off of the course from now until the end of the month. So all you have to do is DM me with thanks if you need to go early, and I'll send it to you. Otherwise, I will be sharing that later on at the end. Okay. So this session is for sustainability professionals and anybody who's early or mid-career who's tired of leaving interviews wondering if you really connected, if they really heard what you were saying. So whether you have an interview tomorrow or 5 months from now, what I will share with you today should give you that advantage. So I hope you take notes, or just internalize it. All right, here we go. Also, by the way, thank you to those of you who replied to my direct message the other day about your specific concerns. I've done my best to weave them into today's talk where they relate. So I hope you personally find it useful. So the way that this session is structured, I'm going to walk you through the 7 steps. And then at the end, there will be an opportunity to ask questions about any of the steps. If you do have any questions that need to be answered more quickly, please use the chat. I will do my best to get to them. I can see the chat, so go ahead and use it. Okay. Let's see here. Here we go. Let's try out the chat really fast if you don't mind. When was your most recent interview? That's my question for you. When was your most recent interview? Was it a week ago? Was it 3 months ago? Was it back in October? Or have you not had one recently? If you don't mind. If you have a second and can use the chat, that will give me some idea, and it'll also help me know that, yes, thank you. Oh, good, last week. Hope it goes well. I hope it went well, I should say. I hope you hear back soon. All right, July. Good, 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 good. All right, so you've got some recent interviewing. All right, another quick question for you. Do you struggle more with explaining your experience or with connecting to the interviewers? Which one's more difficult for you, or at least which one has been more difficult, explaining your experience or connecting with the interviewers? Or neither, or both? I'll put that in the chat. Let's see here. Feel free. Oh, nice. Yeah, connecting with the interviewers. Oh, that can be tricky. You too. Yep. All right, connecting experience. Yes, and it does depend on the interviewer. Good. All right. So yeah, the 7-step framework will help you in any of those cases. So it's going to help you both with explaining your experience and with connecting with the people who are listening. Because I know job interviews can feel stressful. They can feel unclear. They can feel unpredictable. But whether it's an in-person interview or an online interview, this session is going to help you to approach your next interview with confidence, clarity, and a stronger sense of purpose so that you can land a job or a meaningful role in 2026. I've got all of my fingers crossed for you. All right. So here it is. Without any other delay, let's get into the 7-step framework. I did on LinkedIn post yesterday the first 5 steps of the framework. So if you're interested in that, I will put it in the chat. I'm going to be going over those, but I'm going to go into more detail than what I had in that post. So the first step of the framework is to find the right words. And where do you think we go to find the right words? Do we just go inside of our brains? Nah, feel free to use the chat if you want. But what we're going to do is we are going to really closely look at the job description. The job description is the key for us to really connect with the interviewer and to start to explain your experience, right? Because each industry, organizations within industries, they have their own words for people, for processes, and a lot of other things, right? They have their own jargon. And when you're answering the questions that they ask you in the job interview, key is to make sure that you're using the words from the job description. So what I like to do is when I'm working with my clients, we will literally go through the job description line by line and pull out the most important words, especially when you want to describe processes or people, because I feel like those are where they get really specialized. Also acronyms. Oh my gosh, acronyms like PPA. What does that stand for? Right. So we want to be able to use these words. We want to be able to say what they mean. All right. So let's take an example, because there are a lot of different key terms that will demonstrate that you are on the same page as the interviewers. So in a job that you have recently had, or in your current job, what do you call the people who you serve? If you could share that in the chat, I would love to see it. What do you call the people who you serve? And in just a second, I will give you an example. I need to send the link to somebody here. There we go. All right, so I'll give you an example. Sometime this summer, this job just kind of came out of nowhere. A friend of mine shared the position opening here on LinkedIn, and I thought, oh my gosh, this looks wonderful. I would love to get this job. It was a job that's local here in Athens, Ohio, and the people who they serve, there were a lot of different names. Like when I was just generally researching about the job, clients, guests, I can't remember the other words right now, but what I did was I went into that job description and I looked at what they were calling the people there. They were calling them guests. All right, good. So I was making sure that I was calling the people who I would serve in that job by the name that they would recognize, the interviewers would recognize. So anyway, that's the first thing. Step one is to speak their language. You get the language from the job description. In this way, you'll be able to start more clearly communicating what you need to communicate in a way they understand. So in the chat, if there are any specific words that you have seen to describe the people who you serve, for example, please feel free to put them in the chat. All right. So if you decide, if that makes sense to you, does that make sense? Using the words from the job description. If you want, you can give me a thumbs up. Using the reaction. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. That really helps. I don't mind that your cameras are off. It's totally fine. The thumbs up really helped me know that you're listening. So if you do have questions, just put them in the chat. Feel free. But anyway, I'm glad that makes sense to you. If this is something that anybody wants to explore further, or those of you who will be watching the recording, if you're watching this and you're thinking, gosh, I really could use some help with that, as part of my job interview preparation course, you'll get a template that you can use to do this in a very systematic way, to go through the job description and pull out those words. All right, so that's step one, find the right words. Step two, you ready? Here it goes. Step two is know how to pronounce those words and those names clearly. Know how to pronounce them. Now, whether you speak English as an additional language or it's your only language, there are some words that you may have only read. You might not have heard them. And sometimes, like names of companies, names of cities, especially if you're interviewing for something elsewhere, right? Knowing how to pronounce those names is what's going to mark you as kind of connecting with and going along with basically being an insider in the interviewer's eyes, or marking yourself as an outsider. If you struggle to pronounce the name of, like one of the partners that you'd be working with through the organization that you're applying for, you want to make sure you pronounce that correctly. So I'll give you a local example, and one of you on the call is you're here in Athens here with me. So please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. But the local example is that there is a place nearby Athens called, well, I'm not going to tell you how it's pronounced first. I'm going to put it in the chat. It is spelled Chauncy. How do you think that's pronounced? Oh, and there's another person on the call who might know because she went to OU. Any guesses on how it might be pronounced? If you want, you can unmute yourself and take a guess. Nope. Oh, go ahead. I thought I heard somebody. Okay, so A lot of people, when they see this word, they will think it's pronounced Chauncey, like ah, something like that, right? But actually it's pronounced Chancey, ah. All right, so why is that? That was actually done on purpose. Okay, we're doing this insider versus outsider idea here. That's why I'm sharing this with you. All right, anyway, the spelling and the pronunciation difference was done on purpose because, and this is what I heard in a sociolinguistics class years and years ago, that when it was illegal to sell alcohol in the United States, apparently there were people there who were making alcohol anyway. And if they heard somebody pronounce the name of that village as Chauncey, they knew it was kind of a warning that the speaker was an outsider, so watch out. All right, anyway, but the point is that if there are words that you need to use from the job description, whether it is names of the interviewers, the name of the company, names of stakeholders, names of partners, names of cities, or if these are actual terms that are kind of difficult to pronounce or you've never heard them spoken out loud, it's really important that you be able to say those words clearly and effectively. Because if you don't pronounce them recognizably, the interviewers might doubt your credibility. It'll make it harder for you to connect with them. All right. So if there are words that you've only read, you've never heard them or said them, please find out how they're pronounced. Just say them a couple of times because their pronunciation might surprise you. And I will give you an example. When I was in the first year of my PhD program in cultural studies and education, we were reading about a concept that is spelled, and I will put it in the chat. It is spelled Hegemony. I don't think any of us had actually heard anybody say that out loud, but we had been reading all about it. So when it came time for class discussion, some of us said hegemony, and some others said hegemony, and others just stayed quiet because they didn't know. They were confused. Okay, so here's the thing. We don't always know how to pronounce everything. That's okay. We can find out. There are ways to find out. You don't need perfect pronunciation, but what you do need is clarity on the words that matter the most for this role, especially with names. All right. So again, I'm going to say it again. Consider, how do you pronounce the names of the people who are interviewing you? What about the name of the organization? What about the city where it's located? Or maybe it's competitors, stakeholders. All right, at least find that out. Now, if English is not your first language, there might be other words that could be a little bit tricky for you. And that's where you want to go through the job description, pick out any words that when you read it out loud, you say, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, or that's a hard word to say. Okay, pick it out, listen for it, practice it, look up the pronunciation, practice it. And the reason why is because when you make those small pronunciation shifts, not only will you be able to connect better to the interviewers, but you are going to give yourself a big confidence boost. All right. Good. So identifying the words ahead of time will help you to speak clearly so you sound confident and professional. Now, if you wanted to go deeper in that, if this is something that you struggle with as part of the job interview preparation course, you will get a template that you can use to keep track of the words, as well as a few curated resources that I use with my clients to help you track down the pronunciation of those words. And if English is not your first language, there's an additional resource that will help you to better understand how to pronounce those words by knowing what to listen for, because English has a lot of sounds. Just real quick, the vowel sounds. If I ask you how many vowels do we have in English, a lot of you are going to say 5, A, E, I, O, U. Thank you, Erica. Ding, ding, ding. 15. We have around 15 vowel sounds in English, depending on the dialect. Yes, Erica, if I were giving out prizes, I would give you one today. Um, anyway, yeah, so this resource is something that will help you to make sense of those vowels. So that way it's super easy to understand them and a lot easier to say them. All right, so that's step two. Does step two make sense? Make sure that you are comfortable with the pronunciation of key words like names. I'm going to look at the chat. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat. If it makes sense, please give me a thumbs up and I'll move on to step three. Great. All right. So step three. All right. Nice. Thank you for all of your lovely thumbs ups. Thumbs up. Anyway. All right. Step three is to solidify your support. So we don't want to just repeat what's on the resume. We want to show why our experience proves that we're qualified. And we want to do it in a way that makes sense. So this is where a lot of people lose the interviewers, because on the one hand, we can't assume that they have our resume right there. I mean, they should have our resume right there, but that's not always the case. And we can't always assume that they have read and understood everything on the resume. Okay, sometimes it just doesn't happen. On the other hand, we don't want to repeat verbatim what is on the resume. So what do we do? As you go through the job description, here's what you're going to try. Line by line, right? Don't just read the whole thing. Go through and look at each item. So each requirement, each qualification, each just little bit of the explanation. And as you do that, consider an example of something that you have either learned, experienced, or need to learn. As you break that down, I'll say it again. Go through and consider an example of something you've learned, you've experienced, or you need to learn. And that's going to take care of a lot of things. I would not go line by line. And then if you get stuck somewhere, stop there. No, don't. Move on to the next. Just circle that. You can come back and think about it later. All right. So what you want to do is you want to be ready to address each of those items in the job description. So the question is, if you have, if you've learned about something, right? Maybe it was through I don't know, a class that you took or an internship or something. What was one of the main things that you learned about it? That's what you can start thinking about. If you have direct experience with that part of the job description, are you able to quantify it? Are you able to talk about how what you did made a difference? And if you need to learn more about something, what's your plan for doing so? Where can you find out more? And do you have enough time to learn a little bit more about it before the interview? Because if you can learn something before the interview, that's fantastic. And it will also kind of give you the evidence to show that you've begun your research, right? It's not like, oh, well, I don't know anything. Nah, you've tried. Or maybe you've signed up for a course or something, okay? So as it happens, going back to that job that I applied to this summer because it was too cool to pass up, I used this guidance to really prepare for it. It was a little bit outside of what where my areas of expertise lie. So what I had to do was figure out those three things, right? So have I learned about it? Do I have direct experience in it? Or if I need to learn, what is my plan? So what I ended up doing was I quantified my experiences. I was able to do that in this case in years, in number of people. I shared how I learned about other topics for things like, you know, gosh, I'm trying not to say exactly what it was. But anyway, let's see here. What I did was I went out and I learned, I prepared, I researched. So I researched the different stakeholders. I imagined different ways that they can more effectively contribute to that organization. And for the things that I did not have experience in, I spent time learning about the items that I didn't know as much about. So I talked to people who work with those things every day, got some ideas from them. I shared some of what I learned on my own, and I also had clear ideas of how I learned more. And guess what? That guidance that I just shared with you, the interviewers told me, wow, I'm really impressed with how well you researched this job. I can tell that you really care and you have a vested interest in what we're doing here. Right. So, like, I was really glad to hear that they recognize that, but this is something that you can do. All right. So, you've got those 3 items. If you have experience, can you quantify it? If you have education, what was one of the main things you learned? And if you need to learn more about something, what's your plan for doing so? Okay. So when you have that, right? So you've got this knowledge, you've got this experience, but how can you sell your knowledge to them in a way that they recognize? Well, that is where the first 2 steps come in. All right. So step 1, use the words from the job description in your answers as you describe your experience and your knowledge. Step 2, make sure that, well, we already talked about the pronunciation. Okay, so I don't need to go into that. But the other thing that you want to make sure you're doing is when you are trying to explain your expertise, you have to keep in mind who is interviewing you. Is this somebody who is familiar with that job, the field, the jargon, right? The specific things that you have to do? Or is this a hiring manager who has kind of a general idea? Because what you'll want to do is to prepare kind of a way to explain it to both levels of knowledge and experience. All right. So if you're used to explaining things to somebody else who knows about your area, then what you need to also be able to do is to explain it to somebody who's unfamiliar with it. All right. So find somebody who is willing to sit and say, yeah, I didn't get that. I don't know what you're trying to tell me. Can you explain that differently? Right. And they'll help you to simplify your explanation. All right. If that's something that you struggle with, being able to communicate your knowledge, then what you want to do, if you end up taking the course, you're going to get a template that will help you to go through that job description systematically and in an organized way. And the best part is that you can use that template again and again for any future job interviews. As well, you will have access to me and you can say, hey, Laura, I really don't know how to explain what I do to somebody who is a hiring manager. What do you think about this? What would you suggest? And 9 times out of 10, I can help you with that. And here's why. Because I spent from 2006 to 2017, 2021, working with graduate students from a variety of disciplines, right? I'm talking from engineering to communication and development, to political science, to biology, to organic chemistry, to physics, to really, I have worked with people from so many different backgrounds on how they can communicate their research to a variety of audiences, an audience of specialists, an audience of people who are not specialists. Okay, so I've been able to help people no matter their discipline to figure this out. So if you have questions, let me know. I'm happy to help you out. Okay. All right. So part 3, that was step 3, solidify your support. Is that clear? Give me a thumbs up if it's clear. If you have a question, please put it in the chat. And I'll move on to step 4. All right, I see a couple thumbs up. Thank you for your participation, guys. And thank you again for jumping over into a Zoom call with me on this. I really appreciate it. All right, so step 4 is to advocate for yourself. I know that when we are looking for a job, especially if we are out of work at the moment, it's one of those, oh my God, we got to get a job, right? I totally get that. I have twin 14-year-olds who are going to be going to college soon. And I've started thinking, I might want to consider getting a full-time job myself so that I might be able to send them to college, because college in the United States is very expensive. All right. So when we have that pressure of, I need to get a job, sometimes advocating for ourselves takes a back seat. But what I'm asking you to do is don't let that take a back seat, okay? Because you're going to be spending so much of your time when you get this job. Make sure that you really, really have gotten your questions answered about it. You have to advocate for yourself, all right? So what you want to do is prepare those smart questions that will give you an advantage, because the right questions will show your strategic thinking. They will show your genuine interest. And a lot of times they'll communicate your seniority. Now, when I used to sit on hiring committees, and I've been on many, many, when candidates did not have a question for us about the job, it didn't leave a good impression. It really didn't, because the nature of the work that they would be doing is such that they should have a question. They should ask about something. All right. Anyway, so I'm asking you, please come up with these questions if you haven't already. So the first place to think about is to make sure that you are absolutely clear with that job description. All right. So go through that job description. If there's something that you don't understand, mark it for yourself. All right. Just mark anything that you're not sure of. You really need to make sure you understand it. Then the second step is to go through, see if you can find the answer elsewhere, because sometimes, even if it's not explained very clearly in the job description, you might be able to find out more about it on the company website, somewhere else in the job posting. You might sometimes be able to look up the job title and see what people typically do. Okay, but if you can't find an answer that really explains it for you, then you need to find somebody to ask about it, preferably before the interview. Hopefully there's somebody you can communicate with who will reply to you. So that way, if you have questions about the job description, you can get your answers before the interview. If you don't get an answer, then pick one or two of the most important things that you need to have clarity on, so that you can confidently accept the job should they offer it to you. All right. So when you do that, when you carefully go over the job descriptions, that shows that you have really seriously considered your responsibilities and you want to make sure you get them right. Okay. Other things that you might need to advocate for yourself on, if there are certain things that are important to you, like schedule flexibility or the ability to work remotely, again, try to see if you can find the answer ahead of time. If you can't, if it's super important, be ready to ask it at the interview. As far as salary, a lot of jobs share the salary range. Not all of them do. If you can find out in advance, that's usually good. All right. So anyway, that's probably the most tricky thing about it, and it probably merits an entire LinkedIn Live just for that topic. But step 4, that whole idea of advocating for yourself, make sure you take care of your needs, find out what you need to find out, because it's a two-way street, right? It's not just them looking to see if you're worthy. It's you looking at them to see, do I really, is this going to be a good match for me? Is this going to be the right career move for me? All right, so you need to also think about that. Now, if you end up taking the job interview preparation course, I can help you to find and ask those smart questions. And I also can share a resource with you that will help you to advocate for a decent wage. So there's that. All right. Does step 4, advocate for yourself, does that make sense? If so, give me a thumbs up. If not, ask a question in the chat and then we'll move on to step 5. Great, thank you. All right. So step 5, anticipate interview questions. Finally, oh my God, the 5th step. This is where we're finally starting to think of the questions themselves. Are you a little surprised by that? Because most people are kind of surprised that anticipating the questions comes this late in the game. Yeah. All right. So here's the thing. Interviews are not unpredictable chaos. All right. A lot of questions follow patterns. In fact, that job that I mentioned that I interviewed for this summer, I made it to, there were 2 rounds of interviews. I made it to the final round. And of all of the questions that they asked me in both rounds, there was only one that I had not previously anticipated. And it's not due to psychic skills. All right. This is because, you know, if you're really good about anticipating, if you've done this for a long time, you can do it. But I am teaching you how to do it. So even if you haven't done it for a long time, you too can anticipate the questions. And people can think you're psychic. All right. Anyway, what you need in order to anticipate questions is a system. Because when you have this system, you can anticipate and practice and assess your answers. And oh my gosh, that alone will provide you with so much peace of mind that you will be able to sleep a lot better before your interview. So, broadly speaking, there are 2 types of questions. If you look this up online, you're going to find a lot of different types, but I like to simplify it into 2 types. There are those directly related to the job description, and there are behavioral questions. I'll get into each of those. All right, so for things that relate directly to the job description, I have a professional tip for you, and I'm going to put it in the chat. Seriously, you guys, this is, if you're wondering, oh my God, what are they going to ask me about this job? Go to your Ecosia search engine, which plants trees every time you search, and search for, oh, sorry, I thought I clicked enter in the chat. Search for interview questions and then whatever your job title is that you're applying for. That's in the chat for you right now. Okay, so you can quite literally find some really good questions, and often you'll find good ways to answer them as well. Okay, so for example, if you're thinking about job description, if you, let's see here, how many, is anybody here an environmental manager or environmental engineer? I know we had like at least 3 people who RSVP'd. I'm going to ask you if, oh yeah, that's right. Okay, good. Yvette, thank you. All right, so some questions they might ask if you're applying for a position as an environmental engineer or an environmental manager. What experience do you have with designing and implementing environmental protection systems? Or how do you stay up to date with changes in environmental regulations and legislations? Those are pretty good questions. All right. What if you are in renewable energy? How many people are in renewables here? I know at least one of you is. Any renewables people? Renewable energy management? Yeah. All right. So let's see. Good. 2 of you are. So for example, if you use that pro tip there, you might come across questions like, hey, how do you assess the economic viability of a renewable energy project? Or describe a successful energy management project that you've led in the past. Okay, so you can see that you can get some pretty decent sample questions out of these. And I'm going to show you some other ways for anticipating as well. It's not just go to Ecosia and search, or as the kids these days say, search it up. Anyway, you can find a lot of good stuff. Let's see. I don't think, do any of you write grants? Does anybody here write grants? I know there was at least one person who RSVP'd. All right, in case she watches this, a question that they might ask you is, hey, have you ever had to negotiate terms or conditions of a grant agreement? Are you familiar with the various types of funding sources available for nonprofits? There are a lot of different questions. Use that tip that I shared with you in the chat where you search for interview questions for, and then the job title you're applying to. All right, so that's one really good way to get questions about the job description. Another good way is to go through the job description yourself and think about what you would ask to have somebody demonstrate their experience or their knowledge about each of those qualifications and responsibilities. All right, so that is how you're going to be able to anticipate very well what they might ask you. Now, well, before we move on, do you have any questions? Alrighty, so I know it is now on the hour. So if you have a meeting to go to and you need to leave, that's fine. I'll send you the recording. All right, so the other type of questions, generally speaking, are behavioral questions. These are questions like, so what motivated you to apply for this job? That's where if you have looked into the mission of it, right? It's a good time to kind of bring that up. All right, I'm not going to go into strategies for answering because we don't have enough time. Instead, I'm going to just give you a couple of other example behavioral questions. For example, what skills or qualities do you think a person should have to be successful in this role? In other words, what skills do you have that will help you excel at this and how? Or another question would be, tell me about a time when you demonstrated effective communication skills in a multinational team. Or tell me about a time you had to learn a new task. Or tell me about a time when you worked in a team setting. What were the challenges? How did you contribute to the team's success? Or tell me how you would handle unclear instructions from a supervisor. Okay, so usually the tell me about, that's your tip. It's going to be kind of a behavioral question. So you'll have to dig deep into your experience. If you don't have direct experience in the field, you can always use something analogous, something that's related. All right, so basically, if we want to summarize, your strategy for anticipating questions, step 5, is to use the job description, to search for interview questions for the job title, and to also anticipate the behavioral questions. You can also find those online. Now, as part of my course, if you should take that, you'll get a list of the most common types of behavioral questions so that you can practice them. And I will also teach you how to anticipate questions related to your specific position if you're having any trouble with it. All right, if you take the course also, I have 2 different interview practice things. You've got one, which is a recording of me asking you common behavioral questions where you just press pause and you answer. And then the other is that actual live mock job interview where I do the homework and I ask you questions that I think that they will ask you. So anyway, good times. It's a game changer. The people who've taken the course before, the people who've had mock job interviews with me before have said, yeah, I have felt so confident, like for the first time. This is the first time I've been confident going into an interview. All right. So That is something that you might be able to do too. All right, so step 5, anticipating common interview questions, practicing answering them, and then assessing your answers. That's what you want to do. Do you have questions about that before we move to step 6? Does step 5 make sense? Mm-hmm. All right, thank you. Great. So step 6 is to refine your performance. I mean, you can think of a job interview like a performance. That's kind of how I think of things. So one of the many things that I do is I'm also a professional cellist. So I'm a musician. I play music. Anyway, it is very much like a performance when you are doing a job interview. And with performances, I don't want you to think that they are fake. They are not fake. Okay. Performances are when you take your training, your preparation, and you share it in such a way that your audience, that you connect with your audience, that they can hear it, they can understand you, that they can appreciate what you're doing. All right. So when you refine your performance, that's where your preparation turns into confidence, right? Because it's your practice. And what you want to practice is how to structure your answers, how to transition between ideas, and how to recover if you forget what you were going to say. Okay, if your words just go out. Because here's the thing, you don't need to have perfect answers. You do, however, need a little bit of control, and you need to be able to connect with the interviewers. So by following those strategies, you're going to give yourself time to think. Even for those of you who like have this reflex to begin answering immediately. I know one person yesterday shared that with me. So let's talk about structuring answers and replying to answers. Okay. Here's the thing. The first strategy is how, generally speaking, to reply to answers. I am going to start with how not to reply, actually. All right. When people get themselves in trouble, it's for one of two reasons. Either one, somebody asks them a question and they do that kind of thing, and you're wondering, oh my God, did the internet freeze? What happened here? No. Okay. If you don't react, that's a little bit difficult. But you don't want to do the opposite either. You don't want to immediately just, oh yeah, so blah 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 blah, and start talking as soon as they ask you the question. All right. You can start speaking, but here's what I recommend. Don't just start answering the question right away. There is an easy 4-step process, but I'm only going to share the one step that you have to remember here. Okay. That one step that I want you to remember, and it's the most difficult when you feel pressured for time, when you're nervous. But I tell you, if you practice this, oh my God, it will make your life a lot easier. Okay. What you're going to do is repeat or rephrase part of the question. You're not going to parrot the question back to them, right? You're just taking a few words. And what you do is you take those few words, and that not only will buy you a few seconds to think, but it will also help you to make sure you're focused on the answer. And it'll help you connect with the interviewers because they will know that you're about to answer their question. Because I will tell you right now that there are different ways of organizing answers depending on where you're from. And if you are interviewing, for example, in the United States, if people ask you a question, a lot of times they really like to know that you are addressing, that you're answering their question like from the beginning. It needs to be clear from the beginning. Because if you go off onto some detail over here and then work your way around it, and then end with the main point, they might have checked out before then, right? Because they might have thought, oh God, that has nothing to do with what I asked them. Why are they even saying that? And they might not hear what you're saying. Okay. So by repeating or rephrasing part of the question, it shows them that yes, you are in fact answering that. All right. So here's the thing. Let's try an example. Do you want to try an example of that? If you would like, you are welcome to put it in the chat. So how would you repeat or rephrase part of the question that I'm about to ask you? Are you ready? All right, listen up. Again, you don't need to give an answer. You just want to start. You just want to rephrase or pull out one of those words to repeat. So here's the question. Feel free to put how you would start your answer in the chat. What experience do you have with designing and implementing environmental protection systems? I'll repeat the question. What experience do you have with designing and implementing environmental protection systems? Let's see if anybody plays along in the chat. This is a skill. Okay, I'll give you a few seconds. And while I do that, I'm going to tell you right now that if you work on this skill, it will improve your communication so much if you don't already use this. Oh my gosh, because people will feel like, oh gosh, they really listened to me. They really heard what I said. Oh yeah, they understood. It also helps if you're talking with somebody who is, telling you a whole story and somewhere embedded in there is a question and you're not entirely sure what they asked you, right? This can come in handy to help clarify so that you know you're addressing their actual question. All right, I don't see any tries in there, so I am going to copy paste the question and ask it again. And then I'm going to model how you might repeat or rephrase. With some glasses. All right. So sorry about that. I thought I had my notifications turned off. All right, good. Ready? What experience do you have with designing and implementing environmental protection systems? Environmental protection systems? Well, okay, that's it. You can just say that the last little phrase. All right. So this is a skill that you can practice, and it will help you. It will buy you time to think. It will also help the interviewer. Excuse me. All right, the second strategy. So we talked about generally speaking how to answer. The second strategy is how to organize your answers. And for many answers, a very clear technique is something that I hope you know of. It's called the STAR technique. How many of you are familiar with the STAR technique? I'll put that in the chat. All right, STAR stands for situation, task, action, result. I've put it in the chat there for you. I'm going to give you a couple of examples for you. Cool. All right. So for example, if you wanted to talk about duties related to the job description, if I ask you that same question, what experience do you have with designing and implementing environmental protection systems? You're going to start with a situation, then the task, then the action, then the result. Okay. Now, if there's something that you don't know how to do, you don't have a lot of experience, you have some experience. For example, oh yeah. Yes. Okay, sorry, I just saw in the chat, somebody wrote a really good way to start the question. Well, my experience in designing and implementing environmental protection system was when I worked in, okay, and she's setting up the situation right there. Nice job, Erika. All right, good. So for example, if I had to talk about something that I didn't have a lot of experience in, I know that was a concern of somebody who RSVP'd. I'm going to use QuickBooks, for example. I don't know how many of you have worked with QuickBooks. I worked with it like 2 decades ago. So close to the turn of the century. Anyway, so if I had to answer a question about something I don't know a lot about, I would still follow the STAR technique. All right, so listen for each one: situation, task, action, result. Here's how I might answer if somebody asked me if I have QuickBooks experience. I would say, well, let's see, the last time I used QuickBooks regularly was when I was working for an agency that provided translation and interpreting services. So I used to use it, but a lot has changed since then, and it's been about 20 years. Situation. So I know it's useful for keeping track of your accounts, your budget, and it's a great CRM. Okay, so that might be tasks. So I might have pulled those out from the job description. So, action, I took a refresher course in it. Result. And now I'm aware of its updates as well as a few tips or tricks that I had not previously known. Also, I know where I can go with questions about QuickBooks should I need any guidance, but it seems really intuitive these days. All right, so you can use situation, task, action, result to help you focus, to give concise answers, because guess what? If your interview is only 30 minutes, you want to help them get through as many interview questions as possible. And you do that with concise answers. You don't do it by selling yourself short. You do it with concise, organized answers. And STAR is a great way to do it. All right, one more question with STAR, and this is a behavioral question. This is something that a lot of people do not like answering. And I know somebody on this call mentioned that you struggle with, what happens if they ask me, why did I leave my previous job? Why did you leave your previous job? Okay, we might have a lot of emotions around it, but we don't really need to share that at the job interview because we want to demonstrate professionality. Is that a word? Professionality? I don't know. That's okay. All right. So why did you leave your previous job? Well, let's start with situation. I'll give you an example. So if I had to answer this for myself, let's see here. I think it was like 17 years that I worked at a local university here. Anyway, so situation. Well, the employer was experiencing a budget crisis with lower enrollment and, a lot of different problems with the budget. And as you know, it's a large institution. Task. So they had to reduce the number of employees. And since it was COVID and our international student numbers were down, and the program that I served in, we served mainly international students, we had very few students. Action. So the upper administration decided to eliminate the program and all of its staff. Result. Thankfully, I had already begun English for Sustainability, and because I'm active in my profession, I was pretty much immediately offered a job with the University of Utah to teach their international teaching assistants. Okay, so that's what you can do. You can structure it with situation, task, action, result. There are a lot of really good articles online that deal specifically with how to answer the question of why did you leave your previous job. So I would encourage you to go to Ecosia, the search engine, look it up, see what you can find. If you want to kind of go over anything that you find and give a sample answer and you want my guidance on it, feel free to send me a DM. I'm happy to do that. It's kind of a tricky thing, but we need to be prepared to talk about it. All right. And if you take my course, you'll get to practice that answer and you'll get to practice many other common behavioral questions. So anyway, yeah, I already told you about the two different opportunities, right? The recorded video that you can practice along with and the live mock job interviewer. The thing about the recorded video is it gives you time to practice in that weird situation of asynchronous interviews. How many of you have had that where you had to record your answers and nobody was actually listening to you on the call? Has anybody experienced that yet? Yeah. Okay. Two of you have. Yeah, it's kind of strange, isn't it? So with those, when you're thinking about refining your practice, here's what you want to do. When you're practicing, record yourself. I'm pointing to my laptop that you can't see. Sorry. Look, here's my laptop. Record yourself and then watch yourself and think, okay, if somebody were watching my recording, would I not only make sense, but am I connecting with the interviewers? Am I showing enough of my personality so that they can get a decent idea of who I am, how I speak, what I have to say, what my experience is? Okay. And if not, then you want to practice recording yourself. You could start a Zoom call, record it, and just practice talking to people. That's why I feel like I have no problem talking with you guys with your cameras off, because I know you're listening to me. And I have no problem. Let's say if none of you showed up, I would be a little bit sad, yes, but I would still be able to bring the same energy to just making a recording because I've practiced. It's a skill that you can cultivate with yourself, for yourself. So that way you can speak comfortably and in an engaging way when you're on camera, because sometimes you do have to record your answers. And yes, it can be very awkward until you get used to it. I have spent, oh my gosh, I can't remember when we stopped using cassette tapes and switched to computers. I want to say like maybe the year 2004. Anyway, but I have helped people since then to be able to prepare for high stakes spoken English tests where nobody's sitting in front of them and they have to be able to speak in an engaging way for a recording. So if you have any questions, any doubts about that, put them in the chat, send me a DM. I'm happy to help you out with it. It is a skill that you too can cultivate if you don't yet have it. All right. So, I do have to share one weird thing with you. Oh gosh, one of the people who RSVP'd to this, she had a situation the last week, I think it was, where it wasn't like a recorded interview. It was the reverse. So they said, hey, there's this position that we think you'd be really qualified for. I'm sorry you didn't get the previous one, but why don't you come to this interview and you can find out a little bit more about it. But she was led to believe, however they explained it to her, she was led to believe that she would be interacting, that she would be sharing answers. She was not asked to answer a single question. Instead, it was a 2-hour video that she had to watch that talked about the company and this role. So it was not an interview, but they told her basically it would be. Anyway, there are all kinds of weird things going on. So what we need to be able to do as interviewers is we need to be able to connect with people when we have that chance, whether we're recording our answers, whether it's a virtual interview, or whether we're meeting with people in person. We want to be able to make the best impression. Now, we've gone through 6 of the 7 steps. That sixth step was to refine your performance, right? So video record yourself, watch it. What do you need to do? Do you need to organize it a little bit more clearly, your answers? Do you need to speak in a more engaging way? Do you need to work on your eye contact, your body language? Okay, think about it. All right, does step 6, refine your performance, does that make sense to you? Or do you have any questions? Please put them in the DM and then we'll head into the last step. Looks like we're ready to move on. All right, so step 7, prepare for the day of the interview. So you have done all of this work. And confidence comes from knowing that you have prepared thoroughly. You do have a plan and you can handle surprises. And you can probably walk into that interview in a very calm way, knowing that you've done everything that you have, like that, everything that you could. It's a real relief. That's something that several people who I've worked with in the last year have said, oh my God, I was so confident because I was so prepared. Right? That was something they really appreciated. And a big part of that preparation is not just the 6 prior steps, but it's also how you prepare yourself for the day of, physically, mentally, and emotionally. So I know some of you might roll your eyes, but I hope that this message reaches those of you who it needs to reach. And that is, you have to take care of your body. You are not just a brain with answers, okay? You are a physical human who needs sleep, who needs decent food, and who needs to hydrate themselves. I've been hydrating with tea because it's that time of day. All right, anyway, so please take care of your body. Eat as well as you can. So if you know that you need breakfast, please make sure that you give yourself time to eat breakfast. If you know that you need a certain number of hours of sleep, please arrange it if you can. I know if you have small children or, you're a caregiver, you've got other things going on, it can be difficult, but do your best to try to carve out that space so you can get the sleep that you need if you're able to. And transportation. How do you get your physical body to where you need to go? If it's just online, fantastic. Hopefully your internet will be working just fine. At this moment, I'm wondering why StreamYard didn't connect to LinkedIn. And I noticed when I was out an hour or two ago, there's another internet company installing lines nearby. So I'm wondering if that had something to do with it. Probably didn't, because anyway. So just see what you can do to make sure that your space is ready, to make sure that your internet's ready, have a backup plan if something goes wrong, right? So if you can't use a computer, maybe you have a phone that you can use. If you can't use, if you end up being in a noisy place, make sure you have a few different headphones if you can, borrow them if you need to make sure that they hear you. All of that. So you want to really, really make those arrangements. Mentally and emotionally is another thing to prepare for as well. I don't know about you, but I am usually like, life is good if I get enough sleep and if I have breakfast. If I don't get enough sleep, then things become challenging. So yourself, think about what you need, prioritize it. And as far as calming yourself goes and being able to focus, this is something we work on in the job interview preparation course as well. I like to incorporate a lot of different mental fitness training techniques from Positive Intelligence. These are basically mindfulness things that help you stay in the present so that you're not, worried about the past or worried about the future. Okay, so I also, if you do end up taking the course, I have a few items that you can put on a checklist of things to do so you're absolutely ready and confident the day of your interview. So these things can sometimes be overlooked, but they're very important foundations. So that's the 7th step, prepare for the day of the interview. Anybody have questions on that before I summarize what we talked about briefly? No? All right. So I hope that the overview was really helpful for you as I go back through and just say what each of those 7 steps are for you again. I would love to hear from you. What's one thing that you found useful from today? And what's one thing that you will implement from today? Please feel free to share in the chat. I would love to get some feedback from you. Again, those 7 steps in the framework are: find the right words, know how to pronounce the key words clearly, especially the names, solidify your support, advocate for yourself, anticipate interview questions, refine your performance, and prepare for the day of the interview. So, of everything we talked about here, I hope I packed it as full of actionable advice that you could use as possible. I would love to know what's one thing you found useful from today, what's one thing you'll implement. Please feel free to put it in the chat. And I do have a gift for you. If you want more depth and more guidance, please consider taking my job interview preparation course. I let's see here. I want to put this in the chat for you. Right now I have a sale going for 25% off, but for you guys, because you made the effort to show up, I am giving you the 50% off promo code. So it's in the chat for you. Please copy it, keep it. If you forget it, if something happens, just DM me. I know who was here. In fact, I think I will take a quick screenshot just so I make sure that I know who's here. I usually remember, but it's good. So I'm taking a screenshot. All right. Anyway, so if you want more depth and more guidance, please take the job interview preparation course. I will put that link in the chat as well. Oh, yes. Thank you for sharing. Oh, yeah. Preparing the STAR method to answer the questions. Yes. Please practice that. It is a game changer. It will help you to be so clear and to connect with people. All right. Here's the link to the course. Anyway, this course is something that you can take on your own time. So if you go in and you take the course, you'll get instant access to those templates that I told you about, the resources I told you about. I have a series of short videos for each of the 7 steps that I walk you through. You'll also get a live mock job interview with me so that you can go into those future interviews ready to go, more confident than ever. All right. So again, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with me. I would like to gift you 50% off of the job interview preparation course through the end of this month. So the promo code is in the chat for you. You can also DM me, direct message, the word thanks if you like it. Feel free. All you have to do is add the promo code at checkout. It's good through the end of December. All right, so I wish you the best of luck with your job search. I hope you find the perfect job, something that's going to work really well for you, that will not only feed your wallet, but it will feed your soul, something that will help you out, okay? Something where you can make a real difference. All right. If you have any questions, I'll stay on for a minute or two. If you still have some feedback for me, I would love to hear it. In the meantime, have a great holiday season and take care.